Welcome back to Insights. I'm joined by ACC Professor of Political Science Tim Kuhnlein. And Tim, we were just talking about this idea of corruption and crony capitalism in Washington. And now we're going to try to move towards Donald Trump's personal wealth, which was a topic of discussion throughout the campaign. People saying on the Democratic side he's not as wealthy as he actually makes it out to be, but him professing, I'm this great businessman. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think the real controversy isn't so much his wealth, because he's really not that wealthy, or as wealthy as many like to think. Certainly not the wealthiest among the wealthy, but it's the question of the blind trust provisions in the Constitution that really try to challenge or contain any potential for him using undue influence to benefit himself, as opposed to looking out for the interests of the country. And certain standards of practice. His personal wealth, his total operation, his business venture is estimated somewhere around $4 billion. But while he has about 490 million in annual revenue for a Trump organization, Trump organization, which is comprised of about 15 subsidiaries. They have about $170 million in cash, and this is according to an economist analysis, and $500 million in debt. And that came out in the debate, like, how wealthy are you? And aside from whether he's paying taxes or not, his company ranks 833rd in U.S. in terms of market value, and almost 2,000th in total sales. So it kind of puts some things into perspective. The other thing that's been coming out about his wealth or his enterprise is the international scope of it. And only about 10% of his total assets are international, and they're related to licensing more so than actual.
Kind of like the Trump steaks, the Trump wine, Trump ties, things like that.
Putting his name on residential buildings, condo developments and stuff. Now that could promise opportunity for him to test the waters now by just putting his name on these business ventures as licensing deals. But if all goes well, he could, or his organization could benefit by actually testing those waters and now having sort of avenues for personal benefit in further development in places like India, Russia, and elsewhere.
Let's talk about his organization in general, and kind of, there's a crossroads. You can't have a president owning a private corporation while he's running the country as well. So he's planning on having his family take over that, and there's kind of a conflict of interest.
Well, he sold off just recently his stocks, and they were estimated somewhere around $40 million. Just to put this into some comparative perspective, our local community foundation has about $40 million in assets. So that was his personal stock. He relinquished that. So it shows that he's leaning in the direction of making the separation. I think the real question is how does the management of his business operation, Trump organization, actually get managed, and can he separate himself effectively, especially with the family relationship there to his children? Are they going to be embedded in his White House or not? That stuff has to get sorted out.
And there's a real fear here where, maybe with some of these cabinet choices, there are kind of bigwigs on Wall Street, that he's kind of running the country too much like a business and trying to do this for personal business gain in the long run.
Right, and this is the epitome of cronyism and the corruption that would, take us down yet a further path of a sort of plutocratic system. It's already clear the wealthy are very much in control and have a dominant influence in the way our politics operate. They don't always win in the political equation, but they have a much heavier hand than average people. And I think the real question here is this presidency and the way it incorporates the wealthy going to benefit the wealthy only? Is it going to do, as Trump promised, help that middle class population actually get a greater fulfillment of the American dream?
And so this idea of his personal wealth, how big of this is actually a problem if, he's not as wealthy as he says? Is that actually controversy there?
I don't think that's really relevant to the extent that it's about his wealth. If it's related to, is he paying taxes on that wealth, that's another story. And what does that say about pride in America? and especially America that he's now running. So I think that international component is a real concern. Will it affect our for example, if he's trying to, or his operation is trying to pursue ventures in foreign countries, is that going to impact whether or not we engage that country and challenge them on
like
important
foreign relations?
policies?
Yeah, and a lot of the problem during the campaign and right now is kind of his ties to Russia that everyone
Right.
brings up, and if he has businesses over there while he's running the country, it's going to be kind of that crossroads once again.
Well, and if Russia is the model, then we're in trouble.
Right.
As Russia came out of that communist era, the way that the property was reprivatized and the just horrific corruption by which it was relegated, and then if the right partisan didn't get the property, then the person who got it was imprisoned. And I mean, this is antithetical to what America has represented. But if this is now the class that we're going to be defined as, it's going to be a different America, and there will be repercussions for that long beyond a Trump presidency.
All right, well, we're going to continue this conversation, and don't go anywhere because there's more insights coming after the break.